Movement press!
Yeah, so with regards to my connection to house lineage in Japan, I'd have to start by saying that I learned how to dance in Japan. I lived in America for my childhood, but I never actually danced during these days. I started dance when I was in high school in Japan. And I started because, I wanted to be popular and I wanted to get girls and all that stuff. And I started dabbling in like hip hop and locking and popping and all that. But it was in my 4th or 5th year in my college days where I got in touch with house dance. And it was because the collegiate dance scene in Tokyo was paying a lot more attention to house these days. So that was my first contact. I never really understood house dance for its cultural and historical significance. And I never understood the context of it in my years in Japan. But after my college days in Japan, there was a time where I was in New York for like a year and a half, where I went literally just to indulge myself in like the dance scene, whatever you call it, in New York, as it was a city that I never got to fully explore during my childhood. So that's when I started to go to clubs in New York and such. Because mind you, Japan as a country, the average Japanese person doesn't speak English. And if we're talking about how it was back in the 80s and 90s, the first generation of house dancers and of course hip hop dancers, the new school folks, they had no way of acquiring information linguistically. So all it was just super detailed studying and close up mimicking of whatever the Japanese saw. And they really did an excellent job in recreating the feeling of what it would be like in New York and transfer it to the city of Tokyo and the greater whole of Japan. So when I went back to Japan after my years in New York, my appreciation for how far Tokyo had come was tremendously different than when I started to learn house dance in Japan. And I'm going to say this because in hindsight, I was only connected to like the mid-generation of house dancers, and I wasn't deeply connected to the elders, the ones that really started this movement. And this is, if we're talking about crew names, Roots is the first house dance crew, arguably in the world. They were formed in 93. So if we're talking about a house dance crew that still stands as a name to this current day, Roots is definitely arguably the first one. And I actually am very close to the leader of Roots, who is Koji, Koji. He's on Instagram, you can look him up. He's very alive and healthy. We still train together to this day, actually. So we're very close. The understanding of his significance was significantly different than before and after New York. Because in New York, I was informed about how all the information traveled from New York to Tokyo. And then I met Koji, and then I am also close with Pino, who the world recognizes as a member of Alma, which is also Hero's crew. And if you know, Alma consists of Hiro, Koji, Pino, and Hiroshi, these 4 people. And they were the ones that basically shaped an entire generation of dancers, arguably from around the 2000s. What I've come to realize is that all these people that had been responsible for shaping what house dance was in Tokyo was avidly studying what was happening in New York. This is where I was able to understand how beautiful Japan is, because Japan really studies the roots of what they try to do. And it's very detailed, and you can feel a lot of respect in it. Because culturally, I would say I have a lot of Americanness in me, if that's a word. Being in Japan has allowed me to understand the importance of respecting a lineage, respecting a line that travels through time and that leads to you. Because Japan is innately a country that values such things. So now that I've placed myself in this environment where people study a lot of what we call as roots, what we call as history, it was only fitting that a person like me with so much curiosity is now here. And to bring all this information back into the question, I would say that I am much more aware of communities and pockets of this house dance scene that values indifferent, unbiased information as opposed to information that suits their agenda. And this really spreads across so many different directions and so many different locations in the entire world. You know, I think our responsibility is that we have our facts straight and then we choose to do what we want to do with that information. So I actually feel blessed that I was able to learn and really take in a lot from this city that birthed this thing called house dance that we all are aware of, and really place myself in these environments, these cultural environments, and also be in a place called Tokyo, which is basically the second centerpiece to the history of house dance, the second mantle or the second pillar. I would say that I do have a lot of information that I've gathered from OGs in both contexts, and I'm still trying to piece things together. Because again, like, history is his story. Everyone has a different angle on how they saw things. It's the same thing as like looking at a painting. If you look at the painting from one angle, it shows one face. But if you look at it from a different angle, it shows another face. You know, stuff like that. When I hear stories from the 90s and even the late 80s, I have a habit of not just taking one story in, but trying to figure out who else was possibly in that picture around that time and see how they felt about it. Because honestly, it's just a set of different memories, and you got to figure out how to collectively shape a story out of that. So this is one thing that I've gotten from both environments. So for floor and creativity, yes, I would say that I do go down on the floor often. I don't really have a reason as to why I go there. It was a habit that I built in New York while I was studying with cricket and a lot of the OGs out there. And one of the concepts that I fell in love with was the movement of melting. And I liked it because the way melting looked to me was just an emotional falling into, or the falling onto the floor. This is a sensation that I never felt in a dance class. So it was just a new sense of freedom. Because up until a certain point, like, floor moves was something I had a context for from watching B-boys. And you had to get certain steps, certain footwork on the floor for you to even go down on the floor. When you go deeper into house, or at least when I went deeper into house in New York, I understood that going down to the floor was also very free. After that, it was just trying to figure out how you piece things together with regards to dives, Zulu spins, going back up, and then going back down again. And for me, this was also a very pivotal moment of understanding house dance, not just as a practical form of dance, but as an art form. Because the dynamics in house dance is so lovely. It's so nice when you see levels to it. When you go up, when you go down, and how you transition from going up and down. There's an element of poetry in there. When you look at dancers like Ijo, of course, you just feel the beauty and the artistic elements in that. I mean, again, this is something that Cricket really shed light on in my experience. Like, he really led me to understand house dance in this frame. So that had a huge impact with regards to how and why I go down to the ground. But if I was to answer the question of what am I searching for when you go down there, I think it just feels like I'm swimming in the deep ocean, and you're just going deeper and deeper. You just like the sensation of going deeper. It's not really much that like you want to accomplish something when you're there. It's just something where you like being there. Just love the sensation of it. You just chase that sensation of swimming in the water. So yeah, that's kind of how I picture it. Yeah, I like this question. And I appreciate that you recognize me as someone who still studies. What does being a student of house mean to you today? I think it means that if you're a student of house, you're not just doing the movement, but you're trying to study why you like it. Why do you keep doing it? Like, if you're not trying to understand that why, then I don't think you'll fully understand, I don't think you'll fully enjoy it. You wouldn't understand the full power of it if you don't really understand where it comes from. So I feel like there's a lot of curiosity in that. And if you don't have that kind of curiosity for it, then I don't know if you're really a true student of it. Because if we look at house dance, it's still very young. Like, you compare it to ballet, it's really in its infancy. Like, it's barely even born yet, right? There's a lot of information out there, of course. But when you look at it in years, I mean, despite a lot of things happening in the past 20, 30 years, it's still very young. And it's like, you could still search for the information out there. You could still try to make sense out of it yourself. I mean, the internet has done wonders to get information out there. And now we got ChatGPT and all that. So it's like, if you're not really hungry for that information, then I don't know if we're in it for the same reason, is kind of what I would like to say on this topic. Because to be a student of house dance, like, you want to go deeper than what you see on YouTube. To be a little more specific, like, yes, studying the greats, for sure. Like, studying the greats, the names that you know, the historically significant people that has contributed to this dance, like, studying them, for sure. Because they are the Mount Rushmores. At the same time, you might want to study the music they listen to, the historical background of what they faced as a child. All of this relates to why they were expressing in a certain way. Why, maybe there's an actual reason as to why people were going down on the floor. And it could have been a reflection of what they were hearing or what they were seeing in their everyday lives. That why contributes to a lot of whys behind what house dance looks like and how it feels like. Because the dance has very tight relationship with the music and the historical background it was placed in. And if you don't make sense out of that relationship, then how can you make sense out of yourself dancing in today's world? Where's the connection in that? And the dance, I personally feel, should be personal to you. You should be dancing because you want to express something. That expression probably is something that roots from something you want to talk about, something you want to express. And for that want or need to happen, there's probably some external circumstances that are pushing you to do this. So yeah, going back to the question, I feel like if you want to be a true student of house dance or whatever you want to call it, then you might want to even look deeper into the history of where it comes from and how the people reacted to it and how people were interacting with it for you to translate all that information and see how you can fit yourself into this potentially long lineage that may potentially be carried on for more decades. Yeah, creative but not disconnected from the roots is another good question. I'm going to flip the question and say that being connected to the roots will spur or give you seeds to stay creative, in my opinion. Let's picture this, right? An actual plant. The leaves get power from the roots. The energy travels from the roots to the leaves. The same way the leaves will receive water from the rain, trickle down to the roots, right? So you're going back and forth between the roots and the present, the now. So yeah, I didn't mean to digress with that simile. I wanted to touch on that reference because I don't think that being connected to the roots means you're trapped in the past. It just means you're connected to whatever gives you energy, and you want to give back energy to where it comes from. If we replace this with the context of house dance and all of this house, whatever you want to call it, if you really study the roots, if you really study the history of it, a lot of what we have today was born from a circumstance of lacking, of something not being there, something not working, right? This is how hip hop was born. This is how jazz was born. This is how Black culture was born in general. And as far as I know, culture is born out of a circumstance where society is in need of a fix, or is in need of expressing that it needs a fix. And that's when great music is born. That's when great culture is born. That's when great art is born. When you stay close to the roots, I feel like you're going to have a lot of seeds and a lot of ideas and inspiration as to how you interact with your certain set of circumstances that you're given, and how you counteract these circumstances creatively to get through that and even be artistic in that. So going back to this question, I don't think I'm intentionally balancing tradition and pushing things forward. I never actually looked at it this way. I understand the intention of the question, but for me, it's more of a pure process of pushing things that I feel like is necessary within this grand community of what we do as house dancers, as DJs, as party promoters, as event organizers, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of things that I think is still workable and is still improvable that we need to creatively wrap our minds around. And I enjoy this process. I'm inspired by this. This is why I keep it going. Also, I want to touch on the concept of collaborating between different generations. We see this happening in different countries and different cities already. So, it's something that I want to also shout outs to the world, the people that are doing this kind of work, which is someone from a younger generation collaborating with someone from an older generation to accomplish something, whether it's like trying to host spaces together or trying to do events together. When you collaborate with someone from a different generation, an exchange happens where you get information from someone older than you, and someone older than you also gets some information from you. But because of the younger generation, the older generation now has reach to the younger generation. So it's a very symbiotic, coexistent relationship, or it's a mutually beneficial relationship where someone from quote unquote the tradition, the roots, is now working together with the present to do stuff that they could not have done alone. Vice versa, a young person can't really move by themselves unless they have the right context for it. I think when we want to balance tradition and moving things forward, it's always nice for us, for people of the next generation, to always ask questions and have conversations and move together with someone from the older generation.
Movement press!